Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gravely Amusing, the only podcast that says the word more than wives say no to their husbands. I am your host, Brian Peters, and I'm here with the co host with the most, Stephen Cope. In part one of History of Ghostbusters, we covered everything that happens before the Ghostbusters movie starts, everything that happened to make that movie possible, and the backstory of our Ghostbusters characters. So, if you're ready, I'm ready. We're going to go directly into it. We gave you the backstory of how the first Ghostbusters was made, how it came together, and what's going on with our characters. So we're just going to jump right into the plot of the first movie. So, Steve, what happens in that first movie for people that choose not to watch it and are crazy?
Well, in the first movie, Peter, Ray, and Egon are professors at Columbia University of Parapsychology. And the first thing you see is Venkman doing his electric test with being able to read what is on the opposite side of a card. Clearly, he favors the girl because he lies halfway through and keeps zapping the one guy.
It's a great scene, great
Oh,
comedy.
yeah, I love it. Um, After that, they go and find out that the New York Public Library has a haunting where the librarian, which I actually think is the first thing you see, is when she goes
That is the first thing you
downstairs.
see. That is the opening scene.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
discovers the old woman reading a book and scares her, but you don't see what the ghost actually looks like from her point of view. It's not until later when I believe Ray gets the info about the library and Egon goes down there right away and Ray gets Peter to come up. So
Yep.
as they're walking in, you see Egon underneath the table inspecting something. And of course, Peter, being the way he is, walks up and like teases him with knocking on the wood and then slamming a book down on it. So after they do that and they talk to the librarian, which
Well,
Peter
we get
asks,
this comment. We get this comment where Egon's like, or or Peter says something like, "This isn't like the time you try to drill a hole in your head, was it?"
"Oh
and
yeah, it
then,
would
and then
have worked if you would have let me."
it would have worked. Like I want more elaboration on why you
On
try to
what
drill a
that
hole.
was, yeah.
But whatever, it was pretty funny.
But then you get Peter's question about, is she on her,
Yeah, yeah.
menstrual cycle?
They have the librarian that saw the ghosts laying on this table, and he's like, does your family have like a history of mental illness or
Mm.
whatever? She's like, my uncle thought he was Saint Jerome, and
Yeah, and he
he's
says
like, yeah, that checks.
clearly, yeah.
And then he's like, "You wouldn't have to be menstruating, was it?" And then
Yeah.
the manager of the library is like, "What does that have to do with anything?" He's like, and he says the first iconic line in the movie, "Back off, man! I'm a scientist."
Mhm. So
Oh,
after that whole thing, they go down to the basement and follow the route, and you have books stacked up as tall as the roof. You have all the card decks. It came out covered in slime or ectoplasm, I think they call it. And Egon asked Peter to get it, which it kind of looks like egg yolks or egg whites, the goop they used. But he asked him and it to get the sample, gets the sample, and he's like
he
flicking the
can't
ooze
get
all
off.
over the
Yeah,
place,
yeah.
wiping it all over the books, and using the cards to wipe off. So as they're moving through, they walk around the corner. They see this ghost lady, which looks like an older lady, maybe an older librarian, looking at a book, reading it, and they just figure out they have no plan on what to do. They never expected to see anything, I assume. And so they go with the idea of, I
Ray's
believe
foolproof plan.
Ray goes in.
Yeah.
Is that
And
where they say,
he's like, "I have a
Peter?
plan, guys." He's like, Get her.
And then the ghost attacks or scares the crap out of them, and they go flying out the library. Well, after this, they're talking about, oh, how excited they were that they actually got a ghost, like saw a ghost, and they head back to the college where they find out that they're basically fired and kicked off the premises, and there will be no funding.
You are a poor scientist.
Yeah, and gets demeaned by this school guy. And then following that, that's where they discuss, let's start Ghostbusters. Let's start the business. And they have Ray go out and get a mortgage or a
Third
loan,
mortgage.
a
Third
third
mortgage.
mortgage to
Everybody has
get,
that nowadays.
yeah, to find a place. And they end up at an old firehouse station, which we mentioned up in the history of everything. That's an actual firehouse. And you could tell Ray is super excited. He comes flying down the pole and everything, and they're trying to hustle the lady, trying to get her to go down. And once she sees him excited, they're like, "Crap! All right, we'll take it."
This place is great. I'll
Uh-huh.
get
And
my stuff. We'll sleep here.
that's one thing you don't do in a negotiation.
Yeah.
Show your excitement. So after this, they go and they set up the business. They hire Janine to do the secretary work. And I believe they go, help me out here. What do they do in between then and the Sedgwick Hotel?
Oh, they're just like waiting for a call.
Okay,
Well,
yeah. And then you get the Janine saying,
we got one.
answering the phone, what do you want? Ghostbusters, what do you want? And she gets it and she's like surprised and gets all the information. And when she hangs up the phone, she yells, we got one, and hits the button and they go
Uh,
nuts
well,
flying
well,
down the
she
pole.
doesn't snap at anybody until they're busy,
Oh,
and
okay.
she's like I haven't had a break or a day off in like
Oh,
weeks.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and then Peter's like, well, do you like do you want to quit or something, or or something like that. I forget what he says, and then she's like, I quit better jobs than this, and and or yeah, and then she answers the phone. Ghostbusters, what do you want?
Okay. And then, well, they end up getting the Sedgwick Hotel call. So they go there, and this is where we meet my favorite, Slimer, which they never call Slimer, like you said.
Nope.
And they chase it all through the hotel until ultimately Peter ends up finding it walking around a corner and tells Ray, and Ray's telling him to stand still, stand still. And Slimer basically just spears him and runs right through him and slimes the heck out of Peter. So by the time Ray gets there, Slimer's gone and Peter's on the floor just covered in slime. And they get the call from Egon that it's in one of their banquet halls. And they go down, destroy everything in this hall, and eventually come out and they defeat Slimer and trap him. And this is where they get their first job, they get their first pay or bill, and it just skyrockets from there. So as their popularity grows, we now switch over to Sigourney Weaver's character, Dana, where she comes home from grocery shopping, bumps into Rick Moranis' his character, Tully, right? I believe his name is
Yeah, Lewis Tully.
Louis Tully,
Really?
and
Hey,
pulls
Dana, you want to come to a party later?
and she pulls one of her get out of this conversation and just shuts the door in his face. And then as he walks back, he got locked out of his own building. Uh, while also complaining, saying that the lady down the hallway was complaining about her loud TV or loud sounds coming from her room. So he said he turned his to outblast hers and basically help her. And she shuts the door in his face. So she goes into her kitchen, puts the groceries down, gets eggs and things out of the thing. And while her back's turned, the eggs start popping and cooking on their counter. And this is where you get your first hint of who the villain is in this movie, where she notices that, and then she notices her fridge is glowing or lighting up around the inside, and opens it, and where she sees this dimension and a demon dog or a hellhound or whatever we want to call the dogs, growls at her. And I did not know this until I most recently watched it. I don't remember that dog ever saying Zool as clearly as I just saw it on a Blu-ray.
Um,
I thought it just growled at her and then she'd slammed the door.
I don't remember seeing Zool as a kid, but I think it does now.
Yeah, it does now because I bought it on Blu-ray and just watched it
Yeah.
with my wife, and yeah, it says Zool. So she has the idea by seeing the Ghostbusters and all that, calls or shows up at their firehouse and explains everything to them. And Peter, of course, seeing a beautiful woman, tells Ray and Egon to do research on Zool and do all this research, and elects himself to go back to her apartment to do some testing and see what's going on. So they get to her apartment. He finds the eggs. He hits on her many times, tries to go in the bedroom, and she's like, "Oh, nothing happened in there." And he has the comment, um, "That's a crime," or "That's
That's
tragic."
tragedy. Yes.
And they make it to the kitchen, and he does see the eggs, and then she tells him to go to the fridge. So he opens the fridge slowly and acts like there's a bunch of bad things in there, and then opens it and just judges her on all her
She
takeout.
has like bologna and like
Uh
like all processed
Basically,
foods, Coca-Cola,
yeah.
like everywhere. Yeah.
And doesn't see anything in there. So he doesn't believe her, and she eventually kicks him out. He tries to get in again to see her, and then basically gets shut the door in his face.
So it's important to note that they do not go back to the library and fix that situation and
No,
take
that is still going on.
like they never fix that, and they kind of like really ignore Dana's situation like as they get famous after the Slimer thing.
Mhm.
Like they totally blow it off. And as they get more popular, in the scene where Janine gets pissed off, so before that she interviews more help and she interviews Winston, and the best line of the whole movie goes through the best line of dialogue, um, and she asked him like, "Oh, what the? Hold on, I screw up. I forgot. What's the whole thing that she asked him? Um, Crap. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to remember the whole dang quote. Um, where is it? She's like, "Do you believe in?"
Oh, yeah. Do you believe in all this stuff? He's like, if it pays, I believe it, or something like that.
Yes. Yes. It's like, do you believe in the theory of Atlantis, astral projection, uh, the Loch Ness monster, or whatever? And he's just like, "Ma'am, if it comes with a steady paycheck, I'll believe anything you say."
Mhm.
Love that line. Love it.
Yep. And that's when you get introduced to Winston,
Yep.
which kind of just becomes this background character, which me and you've talked about, and he even himself kind of got mad about. So while they're going in popularity, um, you get more hints about the villain, where Peter meets Dana at one of her practices because she is I believe, what is that big an instrument? A cello? I think she plays the cello.
I think so.
Uh, yeah, and she comes walking out with another musician and sees Peter and goes up to him He asks her about the guy and all that, and then tells her that the guy's got information on Zool, which then he reads everything about Zool and then she asks, well, why is he in my fridge? So, do you remember what they said about Zool?
Um, they said that like Zool was a um like a assistant or whatever to Gozer, like worship Gozer in ancient Samaria or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah, like
so they
oh, I'm so sorry. They say yeah yeah. So well they find out that um Ivo Shander was the leader of a Gozer worshiping cult in the early 20th century, and that Dana's building was built as like an antenna to attract spiritual energy. And Zool is based so Gozer, it's important to know Gozer is basically kind of like the Sumerian god of the dead.
okay.
And in order to open the portal to the dead, um sorry, um yeah, well, so Zul was a demigod worshipped as a servant to Gozer the Gozerian, which is like the god of destruction or god of death. And um Zul, or sorry, Gozer cannot come into the real world unless the gate is open. So, so,
Which
and
ends up oh, sorry, go ahead.
so like Vince Cortho, the keymaster, if you will, um, has to be there, and then
Zool, the
the
gatekeeper.
gatekeeper, and they have to be on Earth, and then um, have a physical possession or gateway that Gozer come into the real world. Um, so yeah, so sorry, in the midst of this, um, Walter Peck is introduced,
Yeah, it's
and
the EPA.
the EPA guy, and basically like he wants to evaluate their equipment and if it's safe, and he basically gets them to shut down the here he gets some dude from like the electric company or whatever.
Yeah, that was before the he had an interview with Ray, or not Ray, with Peter, and
Yeah,
Peter
yeah,
just kinda
yeah,
blew him off and said, "Go get your warrant," and then we're at the part where you're talking about where he brings a cop, he brings a technician or something
yeah.
down, and that's when they shut down
Shut the
the,
grid down,
containment
all the
unit,
ghosts come out.
explode out the ceiling of the firehouse, and just go
Yeah,
flying, but before that,
my apologies.
Dana comes back from what looks like going to some kind of fitness class or something, runs
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
into Tully again, and asks about the party, and she says, "Oh, I'll talk to him and we'll see. Maybe we'll stop by for a little bit." And she goes into her apartment where now Tully again gets locked out of his own house.
I love it.
And she ends up going into her apartment, gets a call from her mom, and as she's talking to her mom, she slips out of some of her clothes and sits down in a chair and relaxes. And when she hangs up the phone with her mother, she realizes that one of her closets doors is glowing. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of demon hands come out of the chair, which one gets a nice grope there,
Nice grope of the tit.
and they hold her to the chair, and the chair goes in, and this is where she actually gets possessed by Zool, which is the gatekeeper.
Yes, sir.
After this incident, I'm pretty sure they shoot to Tully's party.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
shoots to Tully's party where you get the line. You hear he throws coats in a closet, shuts the door, and all of a sudden you hear a growl, and he's like, "Okay, guys, who brought the dog?" And the what's his name?
Vince Corvo, the keymaster.
Vince, the keymaster, chases Tully out his apartment, out on the street. until Tully reaches this party or restaurant or some kind of event place. And he bangs on the window saying,
Nobody
"Help him,
cares
help him." Nobody gives a crap. They just turn back and do what they're
because they
doing.
can't see the dog at this time, I guess.
No, and I don't know if it's because, which clearly people can see the dog. It's probably positioning wise where Tully is that they can't see on the other side of them.
Maybe.
Because I think because you see as the dog runs out that it runs past people and they acknowledge it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So I
okay,
think
okay,
it's just more
okay,
of they
fair.
can't see because of positioning.
Okay,
And that's
fair
where
enough.
he ends up getting possessed by Vince Clortho, the Keymaster. So later on, they bring the cops don't know what to do with Tully, the Keymaster, and they bring him to the Ghostbusters where Egon and Janine come down, say, "Yeah, we'll take him." And they take him up and they perform tests where they see in a screen from his, what I can only guess is an EKG or whatever they do to your to monitor your head, they see the hellhound demon dog in the view.
Yeah.
And at this same time, Peter's going to meet up on his date with Dana and finds her, knocks on the door, sees all the destruction, and knocks on her door, and she answers the door wearing some kind of dress. Her hair's
Negligee,
flowing. Yeah, lingerie or negligee.
whatever
Her
you wanna call
hair's flowing. And she asks him, "Are you the keymaster?" And he's like, no. And she shuts the door in his face. So he's like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." So he knocks again. She says the same exact thing. "Are you the keymaster?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm the keymaster."
If a beautiful woman asks you if you're the key master, you say
Yes.
yes.
Yes. So they go in, she's like all over him, and for once it seems like he's being like, "Oh, something's not right here. Something's not right." So he ends up getting her into the bed where she lays down and then starts having some kind of demon possession
But he doesn't get her
interaction.
in the bed to try to take advantage of her.
No, no, not
Right.
at all.
That's important. That's important.
Yes.
Peter,
That's
while a ladies' man, he's not gonna take advantage of a woman.
no, yeah.
But but oh, I'm sorry. You said she starts levitating. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Levitating and growling, and then she begins to flip over, and he looks up and, um, I think we don't ever see her come back down from the thing. He then
No, then
calls
there's a phone call.
yeah, he calls, I guess, Ray, or gets a hold of one Egon, I think he gets a hold of,
Yeah.
and tells him about everything, and then tells him, "Oh, she'll be fine now. I pumped her full of," which I think my wife said was way too much. Some
Well,
kind
like,
of
real
med.
scene, the important thing that we need to put in here is that even though Peter didn't take advantage of her in this situation, Peter brought with him on a date tranquilizer to, for whatever reason, we don't know, but Peter had it on him.
And had no problem administering it
No
to her,
problem administrating. So,
which is
did he
kinda
take
weird.
lessons from Bill Cosby? Who knows?
Yeah.
But Peter had it on him.
So, we zoom to the part where Peck, Dickless, shows up at the firehouse, yada, yada. They shut their thing, explosion, and all the ghosts are flying around town. You see Slimer back eating hot dogs from a food cart. You get the taxi driver that's, like a corpse, basically, with there's a zombie corpse driving. I think that's all the ghosts I
The
remember.
Titanic comes back, I think.
Oh, yeah, and you
Yeah.
see,
Peach Marin.
Cheech.
Yeah.
Cheech talking about him. Better late than never, I guess.
And
And
then, like
then
and then they get arrested, right? Yeah.
wait,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Peck comes
oh,
back, gets
then the
arrested.
ghosts go as, Dana's looking out the window, they explode her front window, and
Oh,
basically the
yeah.
side and top of the building. and they get arrested after the explosion by Peck and the cops.
Yes. Now,
And
now, in the meantime, it's important to note that when they get arrested, Louis Tully escapes, whatever, and he
yes.
eventually finds Sigourney Weaver, and he finds Zool.
Mhm.
This is so. In Ghostbusters 2, it's mentioned that when Peter sees baby Oscar, that he's like, I could have been your dad. And um Peter, well, and we know that the her husband like leaves, he runs off.
Yeah.
So Louis Tully, possessed by Vince Corvo, the keymaster,
I think I
uh
know where you're getting at here.
totally 100% has sex with Zool inside whatever. Like
So
they
you're
totally.
saying Oscar is the demon chowder of Zool and Vince Corthra when they possess those two.
I'm saying that it's possible
I mean, it would make
that
sense because then you have the villain of the second one wanting Oscar.
exactly.
Now, is it because of the power he holds from that experience?
Now you're getting it. So there's possibly three dudes that could be that baby's father.
Okay, you got
Like we know. Well, hold on 1 second. No, I apologize. Because Oscar, because Ghostbusters 2 happens 5 years after Ghostbusters.
yeah,
So I apologize. He's not the father of Oscar, but they definitely have sex. So the
yeah,
father could be Peter, or it could be
the mysterious guy.
this other husband. Who knows? It's
Yeah,
probably this other guy, but because of the 5 year gap, we have to mention. But that would have
yeah.
been interesting if it wasn't such a gap.
That would have been an interesting concept.
But anyway,
Okay,
they get
so
arrested. They get arrested. They find out more about the Ivo Chandler. They do more research while they're in prison. Whatever, and eventually Peter be able to convince the mayor to free them to save everybody.
mhm,
Um, and then we have the big showdown.
yes, where they
Go ahead.
show up. They show up after being released. They get a military police escort to the apartment building that Dana was in. And as they're getting out, you got the crowd celebrating them and everything. A giant earthquake, which is probably a sign from the whole Gozer and all that coming, takes them down into a hole where everybody thinks they're dead. Well, they end up climbing out, realize I still don't understand if the building was shut down or what, why they didn't take an elevator, but they end up
That's a
walking
very good point.
the whole way up to the floor of Dana's apartment and Tully's apartment, which yeah, that I'm as dead halfway through that hike.
I would be dead.
Carrying all that gear
First,
and stuff, that yeah, there's no.
yeah, no, no, no.
So they get to the apartment, they notice it's destroyed and that there's this staircase that goes up that which I remember I think was behind a wall. They didn't know it was there. So they climb the steps. They see Tully and Dana on these like um rocks statue holder thingies. I don't know what the correct
That's the
term is.
technical term. Yeah.
Yeah. And they get struck by lightning and become the demon dogs, which then opens the door for Gozer to come. So they get up there, they confront Gozer, and Gozer hits him with some kind of electric powder that shoots them almost off the building.
Yep.
So when they rebound from that, they end up shooting
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Gozer.
whoa. She asked him, or well, Gozer is more of an it. It's
Yeah, it.
it like doesn't have a clear sex. Um, but Gozer Gozer says, "Are you a god?"
Oh, that's right. The iconic
And
"Are
Ray's
you
like,
God?" He says no. They get hit with the
"No."
blast, and this is where Winston says,
It's
if you're a god, you say yes.
no,
And that's when they get up, they tell each other, and they shoot her with the beams. Do they cross them at this point?
they cross it. Well, uh, no, I
I think
think
they just shoot her, and then
they shoot
she
her,
jumps over them,
jumps
like,
over
that's
them, and then she
shoot her
disappears.
again.
She says, "Choose the form of your destructor," because we
Yes.
find out from Lewis Tully that when Gozer appears, like she or it asks like, "What's the form of your destructor?" And like he says, like she came in a giant sword or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
But so they decide to clear,
They try to clear their minds, yeah.
so they can't. They got to think of
And
something they can easily defeat or something. And
then
Ray's like, "I couldn't help it. I used to roast
mhm,
marshmallows, whatever, Stay Puft Marshmallows." And then we get the
mhm.
Marshmallow Man. And then
Yep.
they cross the streams and they shoot it,
Destroy it.
and that's
Shaving
that.
cream goes down on the ground, covers Walter Peck, and they
That's it.
drive away with the girl, and that's the end of the first movie.
It's famous. They're famous. And
Mhm.
that is Ghostbusters 1.
Ghostbusters 1.
So, Ghostbusters 2. Um, there is some interesting parts of the Ghostbusters 2. So, like Ghostbusters 2, like sometimes you wonder if it is canon or if
But
it's not.
Ghostbusters 2, the movie?
Yeah, like so when you get to Afterlife, there's some things in Afterlife that they don't acknowledge um parts of Ghostbusters 2 really.
Yeah, I don't think they ever acknowledged, like, slime or anything like that,
They don't.
or any of the gear.
Or Vigo. They don't talk about Vigo. They don't talk about how like things kind of go in
They
shambles and stuff.
go straight to Ivar. This
Yeah,
isn't
right.
he yeah,
Right.
because they
And
find his tomb and stuff.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like so they don't mention stuff, and then like you don't have Lewis Tully. So something important to note here is Lewis Tully is a much bigger part in Ghostbusters 2. Um but shortly after Ghostbusters 2, um and I think after like Honey I Shrunk the Kids, Rick Moranis, we have such respect for Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis, his ex-wife uh, got cancer around this time. So Rick Moranis decided to retire from acting to take care of his children and be there to support his ex-wife through cancer. And I don't know if or when she passed away, if that happened. All I know is that he retired from acting to take care of her. I assume she probably passed away, unfortunately. Um, but Rick decided to focus on being a father, and mad respect for the guy. He hasn't returned to acting
Mhm.
since then.
Ah,
He had a little
ah,
cameo in a commercial with Ryan Reynolds
yep,
for a
that's
moment,
I was gonna wondering
which
if
was
you were
so
say that.
fantastic. It was so great to see. Um,
Mhm.
we don't know if he's going to be in Frozen Kingdom,
Oh, I hope
um,
so.
but if he does, I will. Uh, yeah, I hope that if he does show up, it's like in a cameo role. And what I hope happens is that Frozen Kingdom ends, and it's like a post cred scene, and all the madness is done of what happens, and we have Janine in we have Janine in the firehouse, and she's like, and like all the Ghostbusters have gone downstairs or whatever, and Janine's kind of like cleaning up and stuff, and we see someone enter through the door. Like we just see a silhouette, and asking like, anybody there? And Janine has her back turned, and she's just like, hey, we're closed. We're really, we're just recuperating. We
Yeah.
can't take anything right now, whatever. And and then this dude trips. You hear a dude trip on the door, and and Janine like runs over. This dude's face down, and then he looks up, and it's Lewis.
Cut
And
the black.
yeah, and or even if you drop a line like, uh, or she's like, I'm really sorry, sir. Are you okay? He's like, I was actually looking for you. Fade to black. That's all we need.
Uh, we
Pay the
don't need
man.
nothing big from him. Just
Nope.
something
No, that's all we
small.
need. Just
Just
something that like Janine can move on, and then like when you do the next Ghostbusters movie, you just say that she went with Lewis. That's all you need.
yeah,
It's
they got together and left the
just that little
business or
moment.
whatever. Yeah.
Um, so Ghostbusters 2. Um, before we hit Ghostbusters 2, before Ghostbusters 2 comes out, the real Ghostbusters cartoon came out. So the real Ghostbusters. Hold on one second. Let me get there. Okay, so the real Ghostbusters cartoon came out in 1986, 2 years after the original movie. It was produced by Columbia Pictures Television and Dick. No, I almost said Dick. I think it's like Deke or whatever it's pronounced. Entertainment. Deke was responsible for like the RoboCop cartoon, Ruby Spears cartoon. Like they did a lot of great cartoons during that time, and it's like a spin-off of the original Ghostbusters. The reel was added to the Ghostbusters title because around this time, Filmation decided that they were going to relaunch the Ghostbusters from the '70s and do a cartoon show, which probably to pick up on the Ghostbusters, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
the show was nominated for Emmys, is responsible for Slimer getting his name. Um, Eventually, Slimer kind of took over the show in 1988, like 2 years into it. Um, and they focused so much on the marketing of of um, of
Slimer.
Slimer. Now, so much of the backstory, as we said, is revealed of the Ghostbusters in this show. The show has about 140 episodes. If you buy the show on DVD, it does not have all the episodes. Like, I don't even think it has the Slimer episodes because, like, they would do like a Ghostbusters hour where they would do the real Ghostbusters and then Slimer kind of miniseries, which is not included in any set that I found. Um, but the show is responsible for mostly the toys, and it's responsible for the most amazing drink in the world, Ecto Cooler, which for some freaking reason they did bring back in 2016 for a brief time to promote the female Ghostbusters movie, but they haven't brought it back for Afterlife, and they didn't bring back for Frozen Empire. It's freaking stupid. Like, Sony, stop making Spider-Man movies and just give us, or lack of Spider-Man movies, and give us
Yeah.
freaking Ecto Cooler. Like, what
Yeah.
the hell? Um, this cartoon is so good. I highly recommend you check it out and watch. The thing with the cartoon though is it's not considered canon. Um, so only the backstory that we mentioned earlier, it can't be considered full canon. Um, but I kind of like to like consider it kind of flow whatever. Um, but it's not really considered canon. The cartoon also continues kind of the love interests of Egon and Janine, as we mentioned earlier. Ghostbusters 2 throws that all out of the window, which kind of like the animated series builds off the first movie, creates its own canon. It's kind of like the Halloween franchise, where there's everything goes back to the source but creates their own
Hmm.
story. Um, the real Ghostbusters did have a sequel cartoon, which I have not seen all. I haven't seen all of the real Ghostbusters cartoon. I've seen more of it though. But there was a sequel cartoon that was Extreme Ghostbusters. Now, Extreme Ghostbusters, um, I want to hit on it. So the original real Ghostbusters cartoon came out 86 to 91. And then you had Ghostbusters 2 come out that kind of like changed some things. Um, but Extreme Ghostbusters came out in 1997. Now, Extreme Ghostbusters, to elaborate on it a little bit, hold on one second. I want because I do want to talk about it a little bit. It just aired for one season from September 1987 to December. It didn't get a second sequel. I guess because they really just it was very self-contained. Um, but the story of Extreme Ghostbusters, which has has been a part of Ghostbusters Afterlife and kind of where they're going with things. But the story of Extreme Ghostbusters is several years after the end of real Ghostbusters. He has put the Ghostbusters out of business. The members have gone their separate ways, except for Egon, who still lives in the firehouse. He still monitors the containment unit. He takes care of Slimer, and he furthers his education. And he decides to teach a class on paranormal at a local college. So you can see where Afterlife and some future movies have taken things from real Ghostbusters and stream Ghostbusters. Um, and this 2016 Ghostbusters movie does kind of take from Stream Ghostbusters that we're having a new team and stuff. But anyway, that 2016 movie should just been or Stream Ghostbusters. That's what it should have been. It should have just been a live action movie of that.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. So eventually ghosts start to reappear, and Egon is forced to basically be like a Professor X and recruit 4 new students as new Ghostbusters from his class. So he recruits a guy named Cal Griffin, who's like a goth guy, goth genius, and he's an expert on the occult. And he recruits Eduardo Riviera, who is like a slacker dude. He recruits Garrett Miller, who's like a guy in a wheelchair, which was really cool because I think he even had ghost busting equipment tied to the wheelchair. So that was really cool. Um, and Yeah, he was like a wheelchair athlete, and and uh, and then they get Roland. Oh, sorry. Did I say Kyle Griffin? It's Kylie Griffin, so it's a female. I'm so sorry. That's important to note that we had a female, a gothic chick in this. I'm so sorry. Um, and then we get an African American machinery whiz. So this Extreme Ghostbusters was. Oh, we get the return of Janine as well and Slimer. Um, I have ordered this. They finally released Extreme Ghostbusters on DVD. It should come any day now, and I'll be watching the heck out of it from Amazon. So it's important to note that like this added a lot of inclusion, which was really nice. Like you had, a gothic, you had a female on the team officially, um, that brought a lot to the team. You had a Latino, you had someone in a wheelchair, you had a African American again that showed more um depth and like usefulness, and not just like the token black guy that Winston was originally.
Yeah.
If these cartoons did anything, is it really gave value to other characters other than Peter and like Ray and Egon and stuff. But this cartoon was actually pretty good. Like it took the original Ghostbusters theme and gave it like a punk rock thing. Like it was pretty cool. It was like totally 90s. Um, so this show is pretty dope, and I think it even like taps into a little bit of the Janine Egon relationship too. It kind of goes back to that, but it's pretty dang freaking good. I think it's very underrated. I do think Real Ghostbusters is better, but this one ain't that bad. But it's important to note that it existed. So back to my apologies. Back to Ghostbusters 2. So, Ghostbusters 2. If I can find my notes here. I'm so sorry. So, Ghostbusters 2. Um, Ghost. So, Ghostbusters 2 actually came out in 1989, so it was kind of like in the middle of it was kind of in the middle of the real Ghostbusters cartoon. It was directed by Ivan Reitman, so it was directed. It was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold, of course. They did bring Bill Murray back. Yeah, blah blah blah. It's set 5 years after the first film, and so that's important to note. So Oscar couldn't be, Lewis's kid, which would have been interesting. Um, but the Ghostbusters have basically been sued and put out of business after the destruction caused by Gozer. So that's where the real Ghostbusters, like, and Ghostbusters
Branches
2,
off.
yeah, like this is where it branches, yeah. Um, So yeah, so after the success of Ghostbusters, Columbia Pictures wanted a sequel, but they struggled to overcome objections for the cast and crew because Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, they saw this as kind of like the first movie being a standalone. Bill Murray did not like doing sequels. He didn't really believe in it. He's kind of like a one and done guy. Um, so yeah, but Aykroyd and Ramis, they knew that they made money. They thought that they could get like them to make a new one. So they decided, and this is where, and this debate is kind of with Disney right now in the MCU, is like instead of telling a good story, like they decide to like put messages,
Mhm.
like instead of a story. So Dan Aykroyd, for some reason, decided that he wanted to convey a message about the consequences of negative human emotions in large cities, like how cities could change your attitude and the congestion of people, and
Yeah.
like it was weird. So they settled on the idea of negative feelings create a mass supernatural slime beneath New York City, and that the feelings created this slime, and the slime empowered ghosts. Really weird concept. And they had a budget of 30 to 40 million, so it was just a little bit more than the original one. Filming took place between November 1988 and March 1989 in New York City and LA. And this movie was rushed even more than um, than the original movie because so November 88 to March, I mean, that's what, 4 or 5 months? So
Mhm.
instead of 13 months, they only have 5.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
gee, holy crap. Um, New scenes were written and filmed during research between March and April, and they finished this movie only 2 months before its release. So that tells you that this movie ain't gonna work. Like you rushed
Mhm.
it. You're like nobody's really sure about it. Like nobody really wants to be a part of it. It's just whatever. Um, Large sections of this movie were scrapped because it just received very poorly in test screenings. But whatever. Ghostbusters 2 was released in June 16th, 1989 to pretty much negative reviews. Critics responded unfavorably to what they received as like, this is just a carbon copy of the first movie. Um, they felt it was more softer. They took rid of the dark humor, made it more family friendly. Um, but the role of Rick Moranis was seriously praised in this movie, and that's for good reason. Like he did a great job. Um,
Mhm.
but it was expected to dominate the box office because it was Ghostbusters, but instead the film earned like 215 million compared to
Yeah.
200 like 90 something for the first movie. And yeah, it did okay. It didn't do well enough. I mean, I still think 215 mil against a 40 million. I mean, that's not too bad. Um,
Mhm.
but it wasn't as bad. Now, it's seen as like extreme, like kind of relative failure, and it's the movie where like you just wonder if it's canon. Like they mention some things in real Ghostbusters. They vaguely mention Vigo, and but like compared to Afterlife, like they don't really mention it. I do want to add too that there is a deleted scene in Ghostbusters where Janine gives a lucky coin to Egon as like, please be safe as you go face Gozer. And that coin is brought up in Afterlife, but like we were kind of confused by it because we never got that scene in the original Ghostbusters.
No, yeah.
And so it's just kind of like, yeah, so that was kind of like
Like a nod
they
to the
don't really get
first
into it.
one.
Yeah. So, yeah, so hey, Steve, what happens in Ghostbusters 2, buddy?
Basically, if you watch the first one, that's the second one. No, no, no. But basically, like you said, after 5 years after Gozer, everybody sued the crap out of him. You got Ray and Winston doing party shows as the Ghostbusters. The kids literally are saying, "We want He-Man. We want He-Man." And they're just as they're leaving, you could tell Winston's just like, "Nah, I'm sick of this shit." So, those two are there. Ray owns his own occult bookstore, which you see in the eventual game, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, where he has the cult bookstore, but in that it's next to the firehouse. So you get them there. Egon's doing tests on emotions, and Peter, of course, is doing a talk show where they
Why didn't they make Peter a freaking game show host? Like
that would make more sense. Yeah.
Dana makes that comment in the first movie that you're like a game show host or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
why didn't they do that? But whatever.
Yeah. I
That's
mean, the show he's on is basically him being a game show. So
yeah, kind of. But like, I do love the scene where like where we meet Egon and Egon's like messing with that couple and like raising the heat and
he
like that's a great scene that like Egon doesn't have emotions. He just
no,
so
because right after that, he tells them to give the little girl a puppy, and then after he talks
take it
to
away.
Dana, he talks to the assistant. Now let's see if we take it away.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm
I
like,
love it.
dang, that's mean, man.
I love it.
So
So
Dana does visit Egon at his lab, talks to him about her ordeal, which happened at the beginning of this movie, where she's walking her baby now, Oscar, in a stroller and runs over this ooze stuff. And she stops to, I think she searches for something in her purse, and the stroller takes off and eventually ends up in the middle of the road eventually. So this warrants her to go find Egon, tell him what happened. He goes and tells her, "I'll loop Ray into it," and she says, "Don't tell Peter. Don't tell Peter," because I guess they had a relationship after Ghostbusters 1, and it ended on bad, or it didn't end on bad terms. She just kind of left, and then she ended up getting, I believe, married. Didn't she get married to the Oscar's apparent father,
so
or
there
were they
like
just a thing?
so she married him, I think. I think she married him, but I think that they're trying to say that the dude that was in the orchestra, that scene in the first movie where like that pair that was she was walking with, and then Peter does the funny walk and
Yeah.
like that was the guy that she ended up with, and then it was Oscar's dad. Like I can't
Yeah.
remember if she married him though. I can't remember that. I can't remember. But let's say she did. But he left her and he pursued a job and said screw you and like and left her with the kid. So that's
yeah.
important. Yes.
So in this one, she isn't a musician anymore. In this one, Dana is a art restorer
As like the museum.
because of the baby, so she could be with Oscar more. And does say she's gonna go back to music after, Oscar's older. So, this brings us back to the baby stroller, and they end up Egon and Ray are in his bookstore talking about it, and all of a sudden Peter comes in and talks to the guys, and Ray gives him his book he ordered, and then they let it slip that they're on a job, and Peter pretty much abuses Ray to get the name of the person as Dana. So the three guys show up at the door, but Ray and Egon don't tell her that Pete's there, and she attempts to shut the door, and he bursts through. And this is where you find out that actually Peter's really good with kids. Like,
Yep.
he'd be a really good dad, I would think. I mean, I don't know, but he's really good with Oscar playing with, cause he's like a big kid himself.
Because he's me. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do tests around the apartment. They find a little bit of residue, if anything, and they go out to the street where they go to where Oscar's stroller stopped and find out there's something down there. They get a big surge of what's down there. So they come up with the idea of becoming what I'm guessing is this like road crew or some kind of technician for something. And they start digging out right around that
Hey, the
area.
power lines are over there.
And that's when the cops pull up. Peter comes acting like the boss, smacks Egon, and well, that was after they come back, and they lower Ray down, and this is where they find this. What all I could think of is Lord Zed looking ooze from the Power Rangers.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, flowing in this old
Subway.
train station. Was
Yeah,
it
Subway.
subway?
Yeah, Subway,
Subway
yeah.
station. And as they're taking tests, the cops show up again, find out that they're false, and all of a sudden, due to all the like yelling and the frantic by Ray, the ooze comes alive and tries to attack Ray, grab him and stuff. And they end up getting him up, and I believe they were arrested. This is where they were arrested,
Yeah.
and then they end up getting Tully to be their lawyer, where they find out this judge is a hard ass and isn't gonna let anybody go, and they realize the ooze is reacting to his anger, and they try to warn him like, "Hey, like stop, stop, stop." So they end up getting underneath the table, and it explodes, and it ends up being two people he put to death. The judge
The
put to death.
Scarelli brothers.
Yes.
I gave him the chair.
Which were my favorite characters for the limited time they had. I love those 2 guys from that movie.
Those ghosts were pretty dope.
And they attack everything, destroy everything. They end up taking the one female lawyer that was going against them out by her foot, revealing her legs and her bottom area and all that. And the judge then finds the Ghostbusters and begs them for help and basically just lets them off so they can go, beat the the brother ghosts. And this is where they come back. They're back to popularity again. They do more testing on the ooze where they make a toaster dance to what's that song? Do you know the song that they played? I don't think it's the same song they play in the Statue of Liberty, is it?
No, that's,
Taking Me
Love
Higher. I don't
Takes
know
Me
the
Higher
name.
or
Yeah.
whatever. No,
What was the one they played to the
made the
toaster?
toaster dance. They,
Let's see
I
if
don't
I
know.
can.
They sing it's something. I don't know.
Yeah, they play a song where they find out that it reacts to emotion. It doesn't just react to negative, it does react to positive, and they do different things. So, um, meanwhile, Peter is hitting on Dana. They end up eventually going out on a date where they leave Janine and Tully to babysit Oscar. But before I noticed I did just skip
No,
the
it's okay.
villain.
I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Go to it.
Okay.
Yep.
And they go out on date. The other 3 guys go down to the sewer where they eventually fall in, and they end up out at the museum fighting. The negative ooze is making them go negative, and they realize it has something to do with the museum, which the villain
So we find
Vigo.
out we find out
Yeah,
that um one of the paintings that Dana is restoring is of Vigo the Carpathian, who was uh to put it lightly in ways you might uh make sense. He's kind of like Dracula. Like he or the who Dracula is based off of Vlad
yeah,
the
Vlad.
Impaler.
Yeah,
Yes, like from, the Carpathian Mountains, Vlad the Impaler, and basically his spirit is like trapped into the painting. So she's restoring it, and and Janos is Janos is like being possessed by Vigo through the painting. And um and Vigo is talking to Janos through the painting and saying, like, I need a child to put my spirit into so that I can come to the real world and take over. So, almost like the first two Ghostbusters.
yeah,
and um so Janos is obsessed with Dana, kind of like Louis Tully was in the first movie,
yeah,
but and Vigo's spirit kind of goes in Janos to try to well, he possesses him, like he can't fully take over his body,
yeah.
but
Because wasn't Vigo a Carpathian that was a 16th century European tyrant, and he was a powerful magician.
there we go.
So that's where he kind of got the power to possess and all that.
I don't think Vigo's a bad villain. I think the movie needed better writing to, but like it's good to
No,
see
I
a
like
different villain.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I liked him as a villain. He seemed legit like, oh god, he's gonna
yeah,
ruin
I
New
liked it,
York.
and I liked the stakes of trying to take over the baby.
Yes.
Like I liked it. So while Janine and Tali are making out on the couch, um, Janos appears in kind of like a spectral astral plane form and
Yeah, it's
kidnaps
some kind
Oscar.
of super nanny looking
Yes,
get up.
and takes Oscar to the museum, and the whole museum gets and covered with the pink slime. So the Ghostbusters go to the Statue of Liberty, very iconic scene, and
Mhm.
they cover it with all the positive slime that they've charged, and they play, Your Love Takes Me Higher, uh, great moment, and they control it with like
Yeah, a
a Nintendo
modified
joystick,
Nintendo thing, yeah.
and the Statue of Liberty breaks open and up. In the meantime, Lewis, because the baby was captured, Lewis suits up as a Ghostbuster. In and I think it's hinted at in vaguely in real Ghostbusters or maybe in the video game that Lewis was eventually an official Ghostbuster for a brief time,
Okay.
but neither confirmed, not confirmed in this. But he shoots the ooze with the proton pack, and he thinks that he saved the day, and
Oh,
oh,
he's
everybody's
the
cheering.
true hero. No, he's the true hero of that movie.
My apologies, Steve. My apologies.
Yes, he was the
He's
true
he's
hero.
he is the true hero. Um, But then everybody, the guys drop from the ceiling down. They take on Vigo, and they eventually shoot his painting with. Or Ray gets possessed too.
Yeah,
That's the
he
important
becomes
thing.
this, like, pig monster looking thing.
Yes, with Vigo on it. And then they
Mm,
hose down Ray with the positive slime, shoot the proton pack, save the baby, save the day, and then we get this painting of the Ghostbusters over Vigo's of them like
yeah, and
as
they
whatever.
also shoot, the art guy with, the slime too, and
Oh yeah,
him
yeah,
and
yeah.
Ray have, like, this "I love you" moment
Yes,
because they're
very.
so overwhelmed with kindness.
Hey, I love you, man.
Mhm,
I love
but
you too.
the one thing we did forget was that it wasn't until all of New York was singing outside that Vigo started to lose his power.
Oh, because the
He would
positivity, everybody switched.
eventually, yeah, Peter would be able to get his body back and actually save the baby before it fell and hit the floor. So it was
Ah,
actually New
yes.
York was the true hero, I guess you could
And
say.
Louis Solly.
Yes. Ghostbusters didn't do shit.
That's right. They didn't do shit. Um,
But yeah, that's basically the end of the movie.
it's
Again,
the
they
other
walk out, gets the girl, and happily ever after.
I don't know. I'm happy because I love Ghostbusters.
Heck yeah.
Why the heck? All right. So because of the oh, there we go. Okay. So because of Ghostbusters 2 not being received very well, we didn't get more Ghostbusters stuff except for real Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't get them for a long time. Um, and there was a script for Ghostbusters 3 that kind of got shelved for a little bit. Um, now, in my high school days, or I'm so sorry, shortly after Harold Ramis passed away, which is extremely heartbreaking. I think he passed away in 2014. I penciled my own idea for a Ghostbusters 3 script.
Huh.
So I'll share the ideas of that. That ironically, some aspects were in Afterlife. So I should have sold that script. I would have been rich. Um, but I had this idea in Ghostbusters 3 basically that uh, as kind of revealed in Ghostbusters and especially in Ghostbusters 2, Ray is kind of used a good bit as a conduit for spirits. So, in my script, I had that Peter and Dana got married, um, and they had a child, and so like a step sister to Oscar and stuff. Peter couldn't handle being a dad, an actual dad, and he basically kind of leaves as well, just like the first husband did, and he goes and becomes a game show host because he didn't want to handle the responsibility of everything. And mainly he couldn't really handle things because around the time that kid was born, um, uh, Egon died. So Peter, like, he's just not able to handle things. So uh, Winston Winston's doing in my script. Winston was kind of doing okay. He left the Ghostbusters. Winston actually became successful in my script. Like he kind of like started his own business and stuff. In my idea, which he eventually does there. As for Ray, with Egon died, Ray got into a deeper depression, and Ray actually was trying to find a way to bring Egon back to like bring his ghost back and bring him back to life. So, um, I'm so sorry. So, in an attempt to reach out to Egon's ghost, um, in the meantime, Walter Peck is now mayor and has more power. So he's moved up the ranks. And Walter Peck has a vendetta against Peter, and he has a vendetta against the Ghostbusters. So Walter Peck basically is manipulating things to unleash a portal to kind of like a portal to kind of like hell and and basically ruin the Ghostbusters once and for all. So it recruits Ray to kind of figure this out and manipulate Ray. Ray gets possessed by some entity, and all the Ghostbusters come together again, and the kids and stuff. I think I even had Oscar, you know, the son Oscar kind of taking over a new role as Ghostbusters, like passing the torch. I Winston had a daughter, and then I bring in Peter and them's daughter, so like three out of the four Ghostbusters. and basically the movie ends with Egon's ghost kind of saving them. Like so, that's what I wrote down, and they end up using kind of a little bit of that.
So
So
wait, you're telling me you had Oscar as a Ghostbuster,
yeah, Oscar
and
grown up
then
as a ghost,
three
and
females as a
then his
Ghostbuster.
sister, his half sister, which was Peter and Dana's kid,
Uh-huh.
as one, and then I threw in Winston having a daughter, and then I threw in like a nephew of Ray as like a whole
Okay.
new
I was
as
gonna
like a
say it was
legacy.
starting to sound like 2016's version of Ghostbusters with all the ladies.
No, I wanted
And
2 females and 2 dudes. That's what I wanted.
okay, okay.
I wanted a little bit of
It sounds like it takes a little bit like Afterlife has a lot of your script in it.
yeah, they stole it
And
right
then
from me.
isn't Walter Peck coming back for Frozen Empire as the mayor?
He sure is,
So yeah, I mean, you actually predicted Afterlife and a little bit of Frozen Empire.
and I put that together in, like, 2015 or so, like, before the girls movie
That's
came out.
nuts. You're
Like, I
like
wrote down.
the
I should've sold
you're
it. They
yeah,
stole my
you're like
ideas.
the Simpsons predicting crap in the future.
I was. I also put together a script ideas for a Home Alone 3 movie, which they haven't taken yet. So, but I should sell it. Um, so anywho, so I know they release a Ghostbusters video game, and I want to mention it because it is taken from the scripts that they really wanted Ghostbusters 3 to be. So
Yeah,
this game is great. It is
yeah.
such a homage to Ghostbusters, and the story is pretty dang solid. And it's part of the alternate canon, if you will. It establishes another alternate canon, um, but Afterlife took a lot from this,
Mhm.
as you'll see. So this is what happens in the game. So the events of the game occurring during Thanksgiving in 1991, and 2 years after Ghostbusters 2, 7 years after original Ghostbusters. Players get to play a new recruit. You don't get to play as original Ghostbusters, which was kind of
Yeah.
disappointing, but whatever. Um, but you're playing as a new recruit to test Egon and raise new equipment. And during the rise of recent paranormal activity, as they're kind of back in business. So the game opens up with this like kind of a soft open, just like the original Ghostbusters, which I really appreciated, at the New York National History Museum. And one of the museum's night guards is watching TV where an ad for Ghostbusters is running, and rather paying attention to the security monitors, he's watching that commercial. So his attention is suddenly gained, however, when he notices a disturbance in the Gozer exhibit on one of the monitors. He notifies one of the guards on duty and orders him to investigate. So that guard checks out the exhibit, and a woman appears from the shadows and runs past him. But before he can stop her, struck with a paranormal force, which continues to spread throughout the city. Uh, so he's like, you see, like, and then, cuts away. The game then transitions to the firehouse, where you play as a rookie on your first day as a Ghostbuster. And your introduction is cut short, however, when the paranormal force passes through the building and causes Slimer to escape from his containment unit. So your tutorial is basically getting to capture Slimer again. Um, getting Castor Slimer again. So they know that Slimer is going to return to the Sedgwick Hotel. So the Ghostbusters leave immediately to recapture him. So you're reliving basically the first uh, ghost thing of the movie, of the original movie, which was really
Yeah.
nice. So upon Andrew the Sedgwick, who is upset over the return of Slimer, the Ghostbusters, you capture him. Um, blah, 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 and the Ghostbusters proceed to capture him with assurance that they're now bonded municipal employees of the city, as well as any damages will be paid for the city of New York. So that's good. So they don't get sued anymore. They're actual like plumbers. They're parts of the city. Um, Along the way, they meet the mysterious woman from the museum, and she's no mood to chat. During their search for Slimer, the Ghostbusters discover there are now multiple ghosts which are inhabiting the Sedgwick Hotel. and he decided to investigate further. The amount of paranormal activity proves to be so great that they eventually call in who is now Zedmore and his first day off and from his day off to aid them. When he arrives, he informs them that their troubles are far worse than anything the Ghostbusters have encountered before this. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man somehow returned to this New York City. And what's worse is he is now capable of spawning small marshmallow creatures, which they use in Afterlife. Um, the Ghostbusters fight their way past these marshmallow minions until they reach the top of the building where they discover that Stay Puft is attacking that same woman from the museum and the Sedgwick. The Ghostbusters save her from harm, during which she reveals their name is Dr. Isla Selwyn. And Selwyn is apparently an expert on Gozerian lore who is brought in to supervise the World of Gozer exhibit in the museum. There isn't much time for conversation though, because the shape of the Marshmallow Man, is laying waste to the city. So you, as a rookie, along with the Doctor and the boys in gray, go to the roof to distract Stay Puft, while Spengler and Zedmore ready a new type of trap to Ecto One. And it doesn't. It turns out the new trap isn't needed because the rookie and everybody defeat the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and yada yada. So back at the firehouse, Egon decides he would like to run some tests on Dr. Selwyn to determine why it is that Stay Puft and Gozer are interested in her. However, they're visited by Mayor Jock Mulligan and Walter Peck. Mulligan explains that due to pressure from a city council, he has assigned Peck to be the liaison between the city and the Ghostbusters as part of a new office called PCOC, pronounced Peacock. That's interesting. Now, despite their animosity towards each other, Peck and the Ghostbusters have to work together because Peck needs the Ghostbusters to keep his job, and the Ghostbusters need Peck to keep a relationship with the city. So, upon further discussion, the Ghostbusters agree that they should go investigate at the museum where everything's going on. But before they can leave, however, they receive a call from the public library and decide to stop there first on the way to the museum because they never took care of that dang ghost. At the New York Public Library, the Ghostbusters discover that the first ghost that they encountered is in possession of a Gozerian codex, and that would be very useful should Gozer in fact be returning. Their investigation into the matter reveals that her name was once Eleanor Twitty, and she was the chief librarian there at the museum or at the library. The details of her life are few, but it was revealed that she was involved with a man known as the Collector because of his acquisition of many rare books. He used Miss Twitty to gain access to rare materials, but when she found out, she left him. And enraged, this collector murdered her, and now her spirit is bound to the library to protect the Gozerian Codex from the collector. How great writing is that, tying it all together? The Ghostbusters eventually find Miss Twitty and they capture her, but not without the suspicion that it was far too easy to do so. Their suspicions are confirmed when a spirit door is revealed, leading into the ghost world. So the Ghostbusters, and this is part of that first script where, like, Dan Aykroyd wanted them to, kind of travel into worlds and stuff.
Mhm.
They travel to this ghost world and they come across the spirit of this collector who's taken the form of a giant worm with tendrils protruding from it. After a fierce battle, the Ghostbusters are able to return to the real world. And on arriving, they notice that some strange markings with four lights on the door, or they notice there's a strange marking with four lights on the door. And when one light goes out, indicating to them to whatever it was, and now must be turned off. So they know for certain there must be something major occurring, and then Ghostbusters rush to the museum. Where was that? So sorry. At the museum, the Ghostbusters find themselves with finding some ghosts. find themselves fighting ghosts, possibly due to certain exhibits have been created by that Gozerian worshiper, doctor, and architect, Ivo Shandor. They battle spirits of various artifacts and spirits with new levels of power, namely possessing the bodies of the living. Luckily, the Ghostbusters have this new slime blower Mark II that shoots out the mood slime from Ghostbusters 2. And they're able to use it to dispel the spirits from their human hosts, such as the one who'd taken the body of Walter Peck. The Ghostbusters again notice the strange symbol, but time with only two glowing lights on it, almost like it's a countdown. Their triumph is short lived, however, because Walter Peck, furious at the damage created as hosed down by slime, swears that he's going to revoke the Ghostbusters license and shut down their containment grid again. Um, Back at the firehouse, the Ghostbusters know they don't have much time to solve the mystery of this phenomenon before Peck comes and shuts them down. But Dr. Selwyn mentions that she recognizes the symbol that the Ghostbusters had seen and explains that many of her colleagues believed it to be an old constellation. They figure out that it is, in fact, a map of points where the spirit realm converges with the real world. Also, the points correspond to locations in New York City. One light is a library, one's a museum, and one is the Sedgwick Hotel. So they must return to close the portal and further learn the truth behind these events. Tying everything to the first movie, this is how you do it, people. Um, the Sedgwick Hotel was closed for repairs, though, after they were just there, but they forced their way in again. And while inside, they noticed a number of spiritual imprints of people who had once lived and worked there, going about their business they had in life. Some are harmless, but some are malevolent. They fight this like spiritual spirit of this like spider witch, a woman who lived in the hotel many years ago and trapped the manager there. And he explains to Ghostbusters that they're now imprisoned as well in the hotel. So they fight this spider witch. And they learn that she lived in a room 1221, the same floor that Slimer inhabited, and that it held a spirit door to the secret 13th floor. So most old buildings never had a 13th floor because superstition. That's why the elevator sometimes like skips from 12 to 14. So Spengler and the rookie find the spider witch. They defeat her, shut her down, and whatever. Then they go to the East River, and luckily, Dr. Stantz restored an old tugboat and commissioned it as an Ecto 8 for such an emergency. And you go into the spot on the map. The Ghostbusters find themselves on an island, which is Shandor Castle, the home of the late Ivo Shandor, which had disappeared beneath the water mysteriously after the dude died. Upon landing, the Ghostbusters are ambushed by a number of spirits, and a secret trap door opens, causing the rookie to plummet down. He awakens and realizes he must find the other Ghostbusters. But working his way up in the depths of Shandor Castle, he discovers that the castle has been producing large quantities of slime and maybe in fact be the source of the rivers of slime which ran beneath the streets in New York during the resurrection of Vigo the Carpathian 2 years earlier. This is how you write. um, he works his way up further to find the Ghostbusters have been captured, and he frees them. They're forced to fight a young Slor, which is a creature made entirely of slime, who's the guardian of this last spirit door. It's not before they notice a painting on the wall of a woman who looks like Dr. Selwyn. Da, da, da. They quickly defeat the Slor, which causes the magic keeping Sandor Castle afloat to dissipate. The island sinks again, and the Ghostbusters make a run back to Ecto 8 to escape before the castle is consumed by the waves. Upon returning to the firehouse, the Ghostbusters learn that Dr. Selwyn has been kidnapped and the containment grid has been shut down. So, knowing that Peck has threatened to do this, they reason it was he who's behind this all along, the whole plan, and that he has kidnapped Dr. Selwyn. Hearing that paranormal activity is increasing in Central Park, the Ghostbusters decide to go there to search for Dr. Sewing and Walter Peck. Once the Ghostbusters arrive, they are forced to deal with many different types of spirits, and eventually they release a portal to the ghost world and come into a castle. And they discover Dr. Sewing and Peck are restrained, and this mastermind behind it was none other than the mayor, Jock Mulligan, who was possessed by the spirit of Ivo Shandor. Shandor had decided that Gozer was unfit for his worship, and that he himself shall be the new destroyer. However, he failed to merge the real world and the ghost world through the power of these spirit doors. And there was another way for him to claim godhood, however. Through enough spiritual turbulence and the blood of his own line, which is Alyssa, Ivo Shandor could ascend the levels of being a mere mortal spirit to that of a god. But before he could perform his sacrifice, he's weakened by the Ghostbusters, thrown back into the deep ghost world, with the Ghostbusters taken along for the ride. Atop the steps of an otherworldly temple, the Ghostbusters are faced again with the need to cross the proton streams and seal Shandor away permanently. The force of doing so throws them back into the real world, where they revive Dr. Sewing and the mayor and they release Walter Peck. The game ends with Dr. Venkman finally won the affection of Dr. Sewing and saved the world from destruction. But with the spirit realm pushed back there, it isn't enough to work to support 5 Ghostbusters. In light of this, Dr. Venkman offers a rookie a franchise opportunity in another city such as Chicago, Cincinnati, or LA. Slimer escapes again and flies into the screen as the credits go to black. And that's the whole game that I just ruined for you. But the game's been out for like almost 20 years, so whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I think that script is amazing. I think it's fantastic. And I'm glad that they took some elements into Afterlife. So Steve, um, 2016, they decide to reboot Ghostbusters and do an all female cast. Now, I don't have a problem with the female Ghostbusters whatsoever. I do have a problem with the writing of this movie because it was trash. It was garbage. Um, so, Steve, um, briefly, what happens in that dang movie? Just for the fans.
Basically, it's basically the intro is basically like the first Ghostbusters movie, but with females, where I believe 2 of the females work at a university, and I can't remember where the other one is. Where is the
So I think one works at university and she's trying to like be considered credible, and then like
okay,
her
her
friend and
friend.
her Melissa McCarthy, her friend, like they were ghost people, and like Melissa McCarthy still believes in ghosts and still does her own thing, and then like um
Doesn't she team up with Kate McKinnon's
the
Egon?
best part of the whole movie. Like I don't even know what her character's name is, but she's basically the Egon. Kate McKinnon.
Yeah.
Kate. Okay, if there's anything good about this movie, it's Kate McKinnon. She's fantastic. She's spot on. She's so great.
Yep. Oh yeah, she's perfect for that. But yeah, they meet up, and then don't all 3 of them end up showing up at the I think it's another library, ain't it?
Uh,
I'm sorry, it's
like
been so long since I've watched
this
this
movie is horrible.
movie.
No, they go to that
Yeah.
mansion. They go to that mansion. That the mansion is a soft opening of the movie, where the dude from the office like gets sucked into the basement.
Okay. Um, they
Yeah,
end up teaming up, and they end up in a Chinese above a Chinese restaurant,
yeah. That's like
and
their
they
base of operations. They try to get the
at
firehouse, don't they?
first I think so, and then found out how much it was and was like, "We can't afford that."
Yeah.
ended up at the Chinese restaurant, and they started to make hires. They end up hiring um
Chris Hemsworth.
Leslie Jones
No, they hire Chris
for
Hemsworth as
oh
the
yeah, they
secretary.
hire him for the secretary.
He's also
They
great in the movie.
hire he, he's okay.
He's okay. Whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When he's trying to draw the
And
logos for whatever, that's funny.
I mean, he had to have loved to play that role just to act
Yeah.
crazy.
But yes, Leslie Jones, yes. There's
They end up meet
paranormal
she
activity in the
yeah,
subway.
she ends up showing up because she's I believe a ticket person for the trains or the subway, or is
I think
she
so.
one of the ones that drives? I think she's a
No,
ticket person.
she's like a ticket person subway or something like that.
And she ends up seeing something down one of the tracks and goes and investigates and ends up seeing a ghost that's like must have died on the railroad tracks.
Straight out of goddamn Scooby Doo. Like it's Scooby Dooified. Let's
Yeah.
yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, it's this movie just sucks. But so she brings it to them and ends up joining them. And she talks about an uncle that can get her a car. And they end up getting the hearse from her uncle's funeral home, I think is what he owns, right? Funeral home.
Yep.
And they end up turning that into their version of Ecto. And they go on, take cases from there. You meet the villain, which is like a hotel
Yeah, this villain's weird,
cleaning
dude.
person or
Like
something.
he's basically like some dude that was just he's like a mad scientist
Pressed.
or cultist, whatever, and like he basically like is creating this vortex to pull ghosts in, and like he was like bullied or something.
Yeah,
And,
didn't he get
oh, no, it's
depressed?
freaking
End
stupid.
up wanted to be in the dead world better than the living world or
Oh yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And the ghosts are in mirrors in the basement of the hotel he takes care of or whatnot. And
Stupid.
they end up figuring out all the ghost disturbances are related to him.
Yeah,
And they end up finding him at the hotel where I don't know if he accidentally falls into his machine or he just kinda sacrifices himself to the
I
machine.
thought the ghosts he were talking to, like in the portal, like they killed him, didn't they?
No, because I think when he got found out and they were all right there, I think he grabbed the 2 power cords and, like,
Okay, so he killed himself.
kinda
Yeah.
yeah, killed himself to become a ghost, which later on he ends up possessing, um, Melissa McCarthy's character first
Oh yeah, yeah.
and causing all kinda just jumping from Ghostbuster to Ghostbuster
Uh,
until finally Chris Hemsworth shows up outside and he takes possession of him. What was his character name?
I don't know, sexy secretary or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
There's like a whole dance number or some garbage, ain't there?
Yeah, he ends up
Freaking
releasing
horrible
all the
movie.
ghosts and the Ghostbusters get together and Egon creates these whipping
I love how you
protons.
still call her Egon.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
gee,
okay,
this
okay.
represents
She's Egon.
okay.
But what's important, what is a good part of this movie, because there is some good in this, is that they are making their own weapons. They are
Yes.
and they show how Kate McKinnon makes these weapons, and then they test out these weapons, and they're newer weapons. There's a whip, there's like some like
Yeah, like 2
shotgun.
pistol whips kinda thing.
Yeah, that's
And didn't
cool.
when they tested, didn't McCarthy's character try it first and end up, like, lifting her like a fire hose
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
old
yeah,
things?
yeah. That was
Okay.
cute. That was funny.
Mhm.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But I just love Kate McKinnon's character. She's, like, licking the guns and
Have you ever
s
seen Kate McKinnon's skit on SNL where she's the weird woman that got abducted by aliens?
Yes.
One
Oh
of the
my god,
greatest.
it's hilarious.
Like my wife quotes that skit sometimes. Like sometimes she'll just come up to me and just start like she'll just like whack my man boob. And I'm like, I don't know, my wife's weird.
Well, she was
Um,
in 2 of them, wasn't she? They did that skit twice, but different
there was
stories.
one with Ryan Gosling,
Yes.
and
I
then
think that was the abducted by the UFO.
yes, and then I think there was one with Casey Affleck where they like saw God or something.
Maybe that's was the God.
there's a few of them, but
Yeah, they're
yeah,
hilarious though.
they're
She's just
so
the
good.
best. Um,
They dropped me off in the roof of a Long John Silver's with my pants off. That's it's so good. But Kate
but
McKinnon,
I remember seeing that skit for the first time, and I just was crying out
uh,
loud. Funny was.
one of the best.
So you get all these girls; they're all fighting their way down to the front of the hotel where
Yeah,
these ghosts are
where they're doing
coming
a
from,
dance
which
off
is
or something.
yeah, where they see Chris Hemsworth on top of like a marquee or something, and has everybody like frozen in the stands. And he ends up just doing this weird dance number where they're all dancing and he was like puppeteering them and stuff. And I believe this is where he leaves him and becomes basically Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but the ghost symbol from the Ghostbusters symbol.
Okay, which isn't a horrible concept.
I mean, it gives
Like
you an idea of where the logo came from, kinda.
yes, yes. So like if they didn't draw anything before, um, like with an idea, well, I think they kind of hinted at it, but like getting the idea for the logo being them fighting this giant thing, it works. But it's so Scooby Doo. It's so
This whole
cartoony.
movie is
It's
like that.
it's freaking yeah. The whole thing is Scooby Doo, but if this movie was directed by James Gunn, who wrote Scooby Doo, like I think it would have been bomb.
Oh, yeah.
But this movie was directed by Paul Feig, who did like Bridesmaids and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
like it just
Mhm.
doesn't work. It's so bad. And at the end, they even have this scene where like Leslie
Is this where
Jones's
the Zool
character
thing comes in? Yep.
hears Zool, and like I think they plan to do this like merging of worlds stuff, like but this movie has the original Ghostbusters in the freaking movie, minus Harold Ramis, but they play different roles. Like Bill Murray plays this like skeptic guy that's trying to prove
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
it's stupid. Dan Aykroyd
Winston's
plays a
the
cab
uncle.
driver. Winston's the uncle with the funeral home.
Mhm.
Like you could have done this passing of the torch thing because the female cast is not horrible who they chose. Like they're mostly SNL people, but like
Yeah.
um but um I am not a huge fan of Leslie Jones, and it's because like in everything that she does, they always have her be this stereotypical black woman where she's just like yelling all the time and shouting, and like they think that's funny that her just yelling is funny. But no,
Yeah.
like Leslie Jones is actually a pretty freaking funny woman when she's allowed to
Mhm.
be and not the stereotypical kind of like
What they
racist
give her,
whatever.
yeah.
Like, but in this movie, she's annoying as heck.
Mhm.
Like it's horrible. Um, this movie's trash, and
Oh,
we're
heck, they even gave Slimer, like, a family, didn't they?
yeah, like what the heck was that? They gave it like a female Slimer, marching
Yeah, and they're
going
cruising
forward.
around in the Ecto because they stole it from them.
It's yeah, it's
Yeah, it's just
it's
terrible.
this movie's just so bad. This movie totally bombed, and um but an interesting thing with this is while this movie was being made secretly, Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd were putting together Afterlife.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, so that which kind of saved things. Um, and now we're down to basically our final thing here with Ghostbusters Afterlife. Um, if you only watch two things of Ghostbusters. This is kind of like almost it could be used as a direct sequel to the original Ghostbusters movie and kind of ignoring everything else. Kind of like a Halloween 40, or Halloween
Mhm.
in 2018. Um,
Yeah.
so Afterlife, Afterlife basically is kind of like a soft reboot of the Ghostbusters. It's like a sequel. It's a sequel requel, um, however you want to say it. And it is just absolutely fantastic. The only thing that I have a problem with in this movie is that they tried to replace Slimer with something totally different. Um, but
Is it
it
that
kind of
blue one?
yeah, it's like Muncher or something. But it
Yeah.
kind of works because they're not in New York in this movie.
Yeah, they're in, what,
So
Kansas or something?
yeah, or no, Oklahoma, something like that.
Uh,
Yeah, they're in like Oklahoma. They're in Oklahoma. I know.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, they're in Oklahoma. Um,
okay, yeah.
so, so yes, so this movie comes out in 2021. It was delayed, I think, a little bit because of COVID, unfortunately. Um, and basically, it was written by the son of Ivan Reitman, Jason Reitman. Ivan has since passed away, unfortunately. Um,
Yes.
and God rest his soul. But Jason Reitman knew what to do. Is a
Mhm.
sequel to Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2, even though they don't really hint much on Ghostbusters 2, is considered the fourth film in the Ghostbusters franchise, but it's really the third film because we ignore the dang female movie. It's
Yeah.
horrible. So this
And
movie,
again, we do not have anything against women Ghostbusters.
we do
It
not
was the
whatsoever.
story.
The writing was so bad.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
Watch the movie yourself if you haven't, and just get your opinion. We are not sexist guys. We have no problem with
No,
female Ghostbusters. It's just it was not written
the
well.
story, yeah.
It's so bad. Um, so Women History Month hashtag. Uh, um, so this movie is set 32 years after the events of Ghostbusters 2. It follows a single mother and her children who move into Oklahoma farm that they inherited from their estranged father, Egon. Da, da, da. So she is the daughter.
Uh, oh, I was gonna say
Yeah,
the
Egon.
yeah, Egon is
Or,
her
yeah,
father, the
her,
kid's
the
grandfather.
kid's grandfather. Yes.
Yes, okay.
Um, so, as we know, the third Ghostbusters film was in development since the release of Ghostbusters 2, but it was stalled because of Bill Murray, and because Ghostbusters 2 sucked. And then Harold Ramis died in February 2014. So Sony decided to do this female driven reboot, which we just discussed, and it was garbage. But in January 2019, it's announced that Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan, would direct a sequel to the original films. So, we have a legacy thing there. Um, and the movie, it was the final film to be produced and involve Ivan Reitman before his death in 2022. So, um, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is going to be the first movie without Ivan Reitman. Rest his soul. Um, so, uh, so the budget of this movie was 75 million, which is important. It is important to make a great movie. Godzilla, this movie proved it, and Godzilla Minus One proved it. Have movies budget a little bit lower and focus on the story, and the movie will freaking succeed. Because the
Yep.
box office was over $200 million on a 7 million budget. Like, I think it could have done even better, but I think people were worried about it because they didn't know the original Ghostbusters would show up. They just hoped, and they were worried about it because of the 2016 movie. Um, so, Steve, Bring it home for us, buddy. What happens in this amazing freaking movie?
So I'm gonna go through this quick because this is pretty recent, but basically at the beginning of the movie, they show Egon's character running from something that's coming after him researching things. So he ends up onto his property that he has in Oklahoma, and you realize he has his whole property set up to trap something. And he makes it to the porch. He waits until it gets there and hits the trap. It lightens up, but then it fails. And we end up seeing he doesn't end up making it. So it zooms to the future, or I don't even know how long, but it zooms to the future where it shows us
Couple months.
his daughter. Couple months? Okay.
Yeah, so let's
It
just say
shows his daughter and her two kids, not financially stable, living out there, and she finds out that he's dead and she has a property, or he had property out there that she has. So I think being evicted from her place,
she's like, "This is my ace in the hole. This is my golden ticket." You know.
yeah, she up and moves both kids. One of them being your typical boy, wants to go out, hang out with girls, do all that, and a daughter that more represents Egon. It's almost like they're a copy.
Yeah,
She's
Phoebe is
into
her
the
name.
science stuff.
Yeah,
Phoebe, yes.
Phoebe, and
Played
then like,
by McKenna, I think her
uh,
name is.
yeah, I think so.
McKenna Grace
Ken
or something.
Grace, great female
Oh yeah.
actor. And then the
So
kid from Stranger Things, Finn Wolfhard, plays her
yeah,
brother Trey.
plays the brother, yeah.
Yep.
And they end up getting moved out to Oklahoma to look at this property, and they stop at a restaurant, I believe. Or no, this is after. They go up to the place, they walk around, realize it's a dump. There's stuff everywhere. And I believe no, this isn't where they find it, but they move in, and I believe Janine comes back at this point.
Yep, she
She
sure
was the
does.
one that handled all his estate and everything.
Yeah.
And she ends up doesn't she end up giving her bad news or something, like he's behind in things?
So, okay, well, so, um, when they arrive at Oklahoma, Trevor does meet that chick, uh, named Lucky Domingo. Like, what a name! And she like works at a diner, and that's like the only thing in there. Um, and then we learn like Phoebe enrolls in like summer science class to like have social interaction, and her teacher's named Gary Gruberson, another great name, played by our
Paul Rudd,
our
yeah.
great Paul Rudd. So
Ant-Man.
Ant Man, yes. And then we find out. Then Janine shows up, and she has this like lucky coin thing, which we find out that she gave that to Egon before he faced Gozer. Um, but she also reveals that yeah, that like he's broke. Like there's no money. Like you have a home, but like that's it.
That's it, yeah.
And then we see like Phoebe is um she finds out that the farmhouse is actually haunted, and there's like some poltergeist that's like helping her, or that leads her to a ghost trap. And yeah, and then
Yeah, isn't it doesn't she find the PKE meter and stuff in the floorboard or something?
I thought the trap was in the floorboard.
Was it the trap?
I'm not sure. She finds something.
Yeah, she finds something in a floorboard hidden next to his chair or something, I believe.
Yeah.
And, I think this is shortly after this, Finn's character, the brother, finds Ecto in the barn covered in a tarp, doesn't he? And takes it for a joyride
Yep.
through. And Phoebe and her new friend,
Uh,
which I don't know his name,
I don't know what his real name is, but they call him Podcast, and
podcast.
he's like the new Ray.
Yeah. And they go out to a field where I guess I might have missed it. She found a proton pack with the
Yeah.
gun, and they go out testing. They end up blowing something up, and they hear with in one of the warehouses a ghost is in there munching on things, which I think they end up naming it Muncho,
They just
right?
named yeah, they named it Muncher.
Muncho or
Yeah.
something. And it was eating like the
He's no Slimer.
warehouses and destroying stuff. Hmm?
He's no Slimer.
No, 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 not at all. And he ends up running away and sorry about that. Um, the kids meet up in Ecto and they end up going out and ghost hunting, finding this ghost and capturing it, I believe, with new gadgets I've never even seen before on Ecto, with a
Yeah,
gunner
Egon
chair shooting out to the left,
yeah, it was awesome.
a remote control trap that could shoot out the bottom of the car, which they end up, I believe, trapping it with close to their house, wasn't it?
I think so. I think that's how they do it,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And then
But then
they
they get
may have
arrested.
yeah, they get arrested. The mom picks him up because she's on actually on a date with Paul Rudd's character
Yes.
after
Groupie.
they met after he brought the kids home from school or something. They chatted and they went on a date and they end up bailing the kids out. And I don't know what's the rest of this. Sorry, I can't. My
Ah,
mind's
you're
going
fine. I
blank
got
right
you, bud.
now.
So because of the ghost thing, Phoebe finds a phone number for Ray, and she calls Ray for help and informs him that Egon passed away.
Doesn't
And
he hang up on him though a couple times? Like wrong number. Crack.
yeah, I think so. Um, he definitely hangs up on her a few times, but eventually, um, he answers and he explains that after they defeated Vigo. So okay, so it is canon. My apologies.
Mhm.
um, after the Ghostbusters defeated, yeah. So after the Ghostbusters disbanded, shortly after, Egon took off with all their equipment. He moved to Oklahoma to pursue an unspecified threat. And we find out that this poltergeist then is actually Egon's ghost.
Yes.
And he leads Kaylee to a wall of detailed notes and pictures he kept of his daughter's life, showing he cared for her more than she thought. Um, it's a very heartwarming scene.
Yeah.
Also, it should be noted, and that's, this movie is obviously canon, so it should be noted that Kaylee, Kaylee, whatever,
Mhm.
uh, Callie was born in 1981, which is 3 years prior to Ghostbusters' original movie,
Yeah.
which means that she was like 3 years old when Egon became a Ghostbuster. So I would love for in Frozen Empire them to go back to and do like, I mean, you'd have to use some,
Footage
like
from the old movies.
footage and stuff, like something. But if they reveal like Egon had a kid, he was working as professor, or Egon like had a one night stand or something. Um, like we
You know, it would be funny.
what?
Remember the girl he took the puppy from and gave the puppy to?
Yeah. Oh my god!
Uh,
No,
he could have been tested on her his whole life, and that's why the job and everything pushed her away, the testing.
dude, dude,
Uh-huh.
that dude. Because
That
yeah,
could
the age would have matched. She would have been about 10 years old. That girl looked 10.
and she didn't like him because of his work and this she didn't feel important.
Oh my
She was a
god,
test
dude.
rat, like
You have blown the case wide open. Holy
speak of
crap.
conspiracies and stuff with these movies, yeah.
Dude.
Isn't she a
Yeah.
blonde in Afterlife?
It's like a dirty blonde. It worked.
Yeah, and then
That
that
works.
little girl
It
was
works. She
like a
could dye her hair.
bright blonde, so
Oh my
it's there.
gosh, dude. But she like had no relationship with her dad. So like what if 10 years later he was like, yeah, she like barely oh man, dude. Oh, if that's in Frozen Empire and you're right about that's dope. Okay.
That
Okay,
would be
you got
awesome.
me excited. I'm definitely going to mention that. Uh yeah, I'm going to mention that in like ID. Like that's great. That's so good. Kudos, C Wiser. Kudos. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Um, where were we? So that's exciting. That's a good one. But yeah, she would have been alive. So we yeah, we find out blah 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 that that's Egon the whole time.
Yeah.
So then Phoebe podcasts Lucky and Trevor, the new Ghostbusters, find eventually find this Gozerian temple. So where these kids hang out in town is like this weird canyon, and they find out they go down in the canyon because they're kids, and they want to investigate this mine because in Egon's notes he said something was there, and that's what
Mhm.
brought him to Oklahoma the whole time. And exploring further, they discover there's a Gozerian temple, and they find the body of Ivo Chandler alive, alive in a casket, and they find animated proton cannons installed by Egon to hinder Gozer's attempts to cross over. So Zoll and Vince Cortho possess our boys, uh, our people. Events possess Kaylee and Gary, respectively, and I don't think that it's hinted that they have sex with each other in this one, but
No, not at all in this one, yeah.
they destroy Egon's equipment. Shandor awakens, played by J.K. Simmons, fantastic guy,
Mhm.
and he pledges his loyalty to Gozer, but Gozer just freaking kills him.
Mhm.
Which is great. The children discover Egon's setup is an array of ghost traps buried around the dirt field on the house. What supernatural chaos is driving the town. The new Ghostbusters recover these seized equipment. They head to the mine. Phoebe distracts Gozer so Podcast can capture Zool, frees their mom, and weakens Gozer's physical form because he needs the keymaster and the gatekeeper to stay in there. Um, they lure Gozer to a trap in the field, but it malfunctions. Gozer frees Zool, who possesses Lucky, and restores Gozer back to power. Um, at this moment, you have the holy crap moment of the movie where Ray and the other surviving Ghostbusters show up to help
Yep.
the final fight. And we see Peter Venkman and Winston arrive to help. And Gozer, having already killed Egon, seeks to complete its revenge and destroy the Ghostbusters once and for all. But who shows up? Oh, I'm crying just thinking about it. Uh, it's
Mhm.
so tasteful. It was done so well. It wasn't like the Rogue One of Princess Leia. Like this was done
Yeah,
so
no, yeah, this is
tasteful.
done
It was
perfectly.
a perfect tribute, but shows up fighting with the Ghostbusters is the ghost of Egon, and it makes me emotional. Uh, so the ghost of Egon fights with the original Ghostbusters and the new Ghostbusters side by side and uh, destroy Gozer once and for all. Um, and everybody's free from possessions, and they reconcile. And I think Peter even goes to Phoebe and like kind of like a passing of the torch moment, and says, "Good job, kid." Something like that.
Mhm.
It's like really good. Um, Later, the original Ghostbusters return to New York. We find out that Peter is married to Dana in a post-credit scene. and it goes back to the original scene in the first movie. She has him hooked up to electrical lights, and she's doing the
Mhm.
car thing. Um, and thanks to Winston, so we found out from Ray in that phone call that the firehouse was converted to a Starbucks. But thanks to Winston, he bought back the firehouse, and he converted it back to their base, which enters into Frozen Kingdom. Um,
Yeah. Did they ever say what Winston was now?
he started his business with like one employee, like right after like Ghostbusters 2. He like
Mhm.
started it. I'm not sure what the business really is. I'm gonna have to watch Afterlife again, but
Yeah, it's been a while.
it's like this huge conglomerate. The man's
Yeah, I mean, they
doing
have that
very good.
money.
He's doing really well.
Yeah.
And they've done serious justice. So now Winston's going to be this financial backer, and like, um,
Bring back the Ghostbusters, basically.
yeah, and like, so when we play Spirits Unleashed, to wrap this up, Spirits Unleashed, it's revealed. It's kind of like a soda, like a side sequel to Afterlife,
Yeah.
where Winston has the firehouse back. You play a new rookie and leading a new team. Um, and uh,
Ray's parked next door in his bookstore.
yeah, which is great. Like, I don't think it was revealed that Raise the Cults was actually that close to the firehouse. I think they just threw it in here
No, yeah, I think they
for
just threw it next to it.
Um, yeah, but I like Winston being the finance stuff. I want Ray to kind of be there as like the advisor. Um, and
Encyclopedia and those they get resource center.
yeah, yeah. Um, and like passing the torch. Um, I don't know what Peter will do. Um, I hope like what are your hopes for Frozen Kingdom as we enter into it soon?
Um, well, hopefully it's good for one.
Right, right.
I hope we get something like we talked about earlier with Rick Moranis. Maybe bring something in with Oscar.
Hopefully.
I don't
Oh, I really hope for
know.
that.
Is Sigourney in this movie? I can't remember if she's been in is
Supposedly she's not.
she's not. Okay. So
Yeah.
maybe that would be an opportunity to bring maybe Winston in or not Winston, Oscar in and like it'll tell you where she's at, like
I
something
hope
like
so.
that.
I hope
They
so.
just need to bring Oscar back into it
They
somehow.
they
Like,
do, because he would be 30 something now.
yeah, and he'd be one of the only ones that they didn't really acknowledge in any of these new ones.
Nope. You gotta acknowledge Oscar.
So, and I hope it's not Scooby Doo like. 'Cause I think I've seen pictures of this Frozen thing, and I
Oh, the
don't
main
know,
villain?
yeah,
Um, no, I think it'll be okay.
but ultimately, I'm excited no matter what, it's Ghostbusters, so I'll see it. I've seen them all, I've seen The Female, I've seen Afterlife. Yeah, I'll see it
I'm
regardless. It
I'm
has
excited.
Ghostbusters
I'm
on
so
it.
excited. Um,
Mhm.
I after this movie, I want them to do the Boogeyman.
Yes.
And I really, really want Sam Hain.
Yes.
So in one of the big villains of real Ghostbusters was basically the spirit of Halloween, or the god of Halloween, Sam Hain.
Sam Hain.
Um, and which comes from Irish folklore. Um, if you watch any episode of Real Ghostbusters, you need to watch Citizen Ghost, which ties into the first movie. You got to watch Boogeyman episode, and you got to watch the Sam Hain episode. It's so good.
Yeah, I have the whole collection here. I'm about to start watching
Yeah, I'm
from
gonna get
season
back
1,
on it
so
after I get something to eat. But um, yeah, it's yeah. I Spirits Unleashed seems to be pretty cool. We'll get into that. Um, my hopes for Frozen Empire is I really, really want to see the return of Louis Tully. I
Mhm.
want to have more of like I want them to show us like a clear indication of how Ghostbusters are going to be from now on. Like who's going to be who from the OG team is really going to stick around. You know, who's going to lead the new team? Is it going to be this multi generational? You know, where the parents are involved and like is it like I like a big multiple team thing. I'm fine with that and I like the parents with the kids. Like that's great. Like that because that's gonna really help the Ghostbusters franchise in the future as like family films and stuff and like for Halloween, parents are going to be able to like dress up with their kids, and like that's great.
Mhm.
Like that's what you need. You got to focus on the kids. Um, and I'm so glad it's back in New York. We got the return of Slimer, which and we got Janine there. Um,
It just
I
feels
hope
like
it
a
wraps
Ghostbuster.
up those loose ends of Ghostbusters 2 and brings back Tully. I hope that we get even if they bring back Janusz as a surprise.
Yeah.
Like, that would be dope. Um, I just want them to tie up those loose ends from 2 and bring Oscar and stuff. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
excited. So
Mhm.
real quick, who's your favorite Ghostbuster?
Probably Ray.
Good answer. Mine's Peter. Who's your least favorite Ghostbuster?
I kinda got yelled at for this, but it'd have to be Winston. Not for any reason that people may think, it's just they haven't done much with him. He's
That's
kinda
fair.
boring.
My least favorite Ghostbuster is Leslie Jones's Ghostbuster in the female version.
Oh, so we're going with all
Yeah,
Ghostbusters,
all
you mean?
Ghostbusters. I'm gonna throw that whole team, the whole
Okay,
freaking
okay.
team. They're the worst, minus Kate McKinnon's. She was great.
Yeah, yeah, I would have to say her character. I wasn't too keen on Melissa McCarthy's character either,
She was trash. Yeah,
and definitely not the Chris Hemsworth crowd.
yeah,
Like,
horrible.
it would definitely be Kate McKinnon's, like, second to my favorite, like, I
Yeah,
loved her.
yeah. I'm with you. She's the best part of the whole movie. Um,
Mhm.
okay, what is you think is the best Ghostbuster movie?
I would have to go with the OG, the first one,
That is the correct answer. Um, so,
definitely.
so next week we're going to discuss what happens in Frozen Empire. We're going to bring our boy Jure into it and Tyler. Maybe James will be in it if he is able to. We'll see how it goes. I think you might not be able to join us, Steve, because you might
Yeah, it
haven't
depends on
watched
when
the
I
movie
could
yet.
see it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But and then after that, we'll be ending the month of March with our kind of part two of Godzilla and King Kong. We'll get into the very depth history of them working together in movies. So we'll be talking about Godzilla and Kong first outing, and we'll be talking about basically the MonsterVerse and how that movie's gone and everything that's happened there and that's gonna be exciting.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna take a little break for a little while because I'm gonna come visit you and watch WrestleMania with you.
Yes, sir.
and My anniversary is the week after, so I'll be on vacation with my wife in Chicago and seeing our nieces and spending time with my wife. It's a much needed rest. I need it.
Yeah, it's
And
April's a busy month.
April is a very busy month. Um, So, X-Men, the animated series sequel, X-Men 97 is coming out, which we'll be talking about on Brian and the Guys come in May when the show's over, because I like to talk about the show when it's over to get a full aspect on it. Um, so if you like superheroes and superhero history and nostalgic stuff, check out Brian the Guys. If you like this podcast and want more of Gravely Amusing or check out Brian the Guys, you can find us on Gravely Amusing find us at Gravely Amusing on X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Brian the Guys. If you want to find me personally to discuss other stuff or whatever, you can find me on X, TikTok, Threads, and Insta as the Man Child of Steel, which is a pretty badass nickname that I've given or got. And thank you, my cousin, for being my co-host. Of course, you are my buddy. We have done 2 parts podcast in 4 hours. You know how we go. We just can't stop talking. We love talking
Yep.
about nerdy stuff.
Mhm.
But thank you, listeners, for joining us for these 2-part podcasts. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope this podcast thrilled you. I hope it shocked you. And if nothing else, I hope it left you gravely amused.